Hey, Josh. I didn't know you were going to be here today. And we'll get into some intros. But are you excited to implement HubSpot?
Um, yeah, I guess so. I kind of didn't know for sure I was going to be here today either. I got an invite on Monday, so I'm not sure what the agenda is, but happy to be here, help support the process, whatever I can do.
Oh, okay. So we're both kind of surprised. Do you know why you're supposed to be here?
Yeah, I got an invite from Andy. He said that he's working on an initiative, something about like streamlining communications. I've worked with all of the kind of oversee the uh, America West account managers. I've got 6, 7 at any given time account managers under me that kind of oversee our uh, implementation and success for kind of customers of all sizes west of the Mississippi. So I've got a team. We're tracking projects and communication and things. Um, we use ClickUp and some other systems, but um, yeah, I'm
Okay.
assuming that something that we might have to integrate, maybe something. I'm not
All
sure.
right. So while we awkwardly wait for Andy, obviously it's a good time for him to be late. And like, have you heard of do you know what HubSpot is?
Um, I've never used it. I know it's like marketing emails and stuff, like email automation. We don't do a lot of that. We do like we do some like monthly newsletter things, maybe. But yeah, like I said, we mostly use like ClickUp, and we have some couple of other systems for things.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, this is designed to be like a full life cycle, customer life cycle implementation is what we've been brought in to do for you. So I'm kind of uh, like surprised a little bit that you haven't heard of it, but we can get through that. You'll definitely be impacted by this change. I imagine that's why you have received this invite. Um, but yeah, once Andy joins, we'll get him to say, what's been going on from the internal perspective and why the company has chosen, HubSpot as a platform to start to build on. So I'm glad. I'm sorry you're surprised by this invite, but I'm glad you could join today.
Yeah, I mean looking forward to hearing kind of more about the plan too. Obviously, we have 250-ish customers with my understanding is some big growth goals. So hopefully, more of that coming from the sales side, and like I said, 7, 8 reps, and depending on how the um, pipeline goes, probably going scaling up to 10 to 12 in Q1. But obviously, with that kind of much in flight, uh, definitely would love to kind of see if there's any ways to be more efficient without breaking our existing process. So kind of want to better understand like what the kind of plan and roadmap might look like for that, um, to help my
And
team be ready.
and scene.
I'm glad
Uh,
that scene's over. Ugh, terrible.
oh man, we're getting pretty good. I wonder why we're getting good at these awkward moments at the beginning of calls.
Because we've
Maybe
been
because we've.
on so many.
Oh man. Well, if you're just joining us, welcome to the Value Path, and we've been through the first part of the Value Path: audience, researcher, hand raiser, buyer. Last time, we talked about the handoff, between buyer and value creator. or as most people know it, from opportunity to customer. And that moment, like the exchange we just had, way too prevalent, um, and does it certainly makes the handoff hard when you don't have any idea who's about to show up on the call. Uh, so thank you for struggling through that with me.
Sure. I mean, the other angle too there is like this is kind of related to the handoff as well. But Andy's going to get on the call, and you're going to help with that transition. But Andy is also going to get handed off to an internal account manager on the client services side, and we're going to have a good old network effect where the node raise to the power of the node's level of confusion of everybody kind of trying to figure out what everybody else is doing on the call and needs.
Yeah. And how do we prepare people? Because every other stage, um, the goal, the approach to get to audience and researcher and hand raiser and buyer was to come up with a statement like, I am doing this thing, right? So, audience, I am learning, researcher, I am researching, uh, hand raiser, I need help, buyer, I am buying something. Um, and then, even after this stage, adopter stage, I'm adopting the product or I realize the value,
Mm-hmm.
advocate, champion, like very easy. And I got to this stage, which was originally customer. Um, and the first thought is like, okay, we're designing a full cycle customer experience. And if we treat them as the customer when they're in audience stage, like that's how you get to a fully designed customer experience. So it doesn't make sense to me to have the customer stage be after closed one. And maybe that's at the heart of, some of the struggles we've seen. But then I was like, okay, so like, what is the customer saying? Like, I am what? Right. And when you have when you have the possibility of two people, the new account manager or the new project manager, and uh, you know, um, Joshua Oakes from the other side as a new account manager, and neither person has been involved in the process so far. How could you possibly like what? How can you make any assumptions in that moment to help you navigate what's about to happen on that kickoff without it just going off the rails?
Yeah. The uh, you can't is the short answer to that question, and the model of lifecycle stages as implemented in HubSpot, yes, but every CRM is insufficient, as we've talked about several times, right? There's two lifecycle stages after a closed one deal, and there's, between three, depending on your defaults, there's between 3 and 8 before. Not to mention if you use leads as a separate pipeline and object, et cetera. The um, the distinction, right, of well, in the CRM lifecycle stage model, the company has now moved to lifecycle stage customer, so all contacts associated with that company also advance to that lifecycle stage. Okay, I mean it's not wrong, but like as the mathematician George Box says, all models are wrong, but some are useful, right? And that is useful in the sense that those folks, if they fill out an inquiry form, knowing that they are a customer means we need to think about something differently. But that does not describe like, okay, what happens now? And the idea is like, oh, well, we have a success pipeline or a ticket pipeline or a project pipeline that is meant to describe that. But those still describe the actions that we as the seller, as the service provider, need to undertake not the journey of the now customer, the people involved on the other side of the table, and what they need to do to accomplish their goals, right? Like, I really like the stage name value creator and the statement of like, I must create value. I am on the hook to create value as the person who has been assigned this project or as the person who is paying for this project or product. And the those customer statements for all of the stages, right? I am learning, I am researching, I need help, I am buying, I must create value, I realize the value. What is not attached to those statements is the specific application of the company that is adopting the value path, right? The those like I am I am learning, right? Like, that's a general statement, but there what does the person at that stage need to learn, right? Those that's going to be unique to their context, to the individual, to how long they've been learning, etc. And creating value in this stage, I must create value is the same thing. Well, for each person on that call, what is the value that they need to create? Both for like internal stakeholders as well as their responsibilities, and in the context of, in our example, the project, right? Like, the point of this stage, it's not just called customer because the cash register has rung, an SOW has been signed, a contract has been sent, or, funds have been deposited, but we are talking about where the rubber meets the road, right? The process isn't done. It is time to define or to carry over, continue the definition of what that value is. They need to create, and you as the provider need to support and turn it into tactical, visible, uh, you know, communicatable value to the organization and to all the stakeholders.
Yeah. And this is all in an effort to get to the adopter stage, which is like, again, it was like it's a glaring omission in every CRM where you know that adoption is so important, especially in software. Like,
Yeah,
and there are no stages named that. We're not designing anything to try and get there because this big old customer bucket. But you know that in order to adopt, the value realization has to happen. And when you don't know like what the value even looks like in the first place, you can't help them realize it, right? And that's when this was the first stage where I was like, oh, what if it's an executive that shows up? What
yeah,
if it's a manager? What if it's an individual contributor? That's you don't get to like group them together and define the value because
right,
all three of them are going to be important for the organization realizing like the value.
right. And in that relation, and I'll make. I don't want to play this show on hard mode, but I'll throw in there's somebody from IT security on the call too. Like, oh boy, like
Yeah.
this is gonna be a rough one. Um,
And
the
as you
all of
brought that
those
up,
people, just real quick, all of those people, like, they have internal stakeholders to that value that they need to create. Some of they absolutely have like their own goals, intrinsic value that they are trying to create in part of this. We could spend a ton of time on that, but if those are the people on your kickoff call, uh, there is also like political and interpersonal dynamics to the value that needs to be realized and created there too, right? Like, the IC needs to make their manager look good. Their manager needs to communicate success up the chain. The VP needs to say, the initiative that we kicked off, of which this is like 1/3 of the spend and activities that I am reporting up to the C level, that it's going on the board presentation next quarter. Like, all of that stuff needs to be aligned, right?
yeah,
And if we are just like, oh, here's the implementation plan, and we hope that the VP level can figure it out. It's
right.
why on, like, you highlighted, like on the product side, there's a lot of people building, particularly again software products. There's a lot of like, well, what's our North Star metric that aligns our success with customer success, and then we can focus on moving that needle. A lot of organizations say our North Star metric is, and then instead of one thing, they have five things, which is not a North Star metric. That's like a Big Dipper metric, and then they try to just inject those product analytics into the CRM in some way, or connected
Right.
at account level or something, because they try to say like, oh, their adoption rate of features or percentage of seats that they're utilizing is, at these rates or something. And then they try to define that as stages. And that is which is no shade. That's a super hard business to be in.
Yeah.
But, like that is not an understanding of the customer that helps you get them uh, activated as value creators and moving into adopters where they have like taken ownership of that value. They understand it. They can get leverage themselves. They need less support or training or direction or education in order to achieve that value.
Yeah. And you often have the data that can tell you that if you like create the frame for it. Because like so often we hear like, oh, adoption is the goal. And then we got, okay, where are the adopters? Like who's
Right.
already adopted? And the data is sitting in there. But first of all, since you haven't separated life cycle stages between company and humans, like that makes it hard. Or we'll tell you that there is great adoption where there is not, and
Right.
vice versa, right? Depending on how many contacts are listed as customers and all the roll up that you start to do,
Right.
right? And um, uh, like the goal of this process is even like like the value paths framework designed to help the customer facing teams and business leaders understand the transformation that needs to be made to actually be like customer centric, and a lot of the things that we know when you say like, oh yeah, I know that customer experience is how to differentiate, I know that's the battlefield or whatever, and so it's going to be an initiative, and you know you start to apply metrics based on that customer label, and then because it doesn't have any of this stuff built in, it just takes you in the wrong direction. And instead of trying to change that, we create great, like super sophisticated analytics packages. And like, all right, where if, and that doesn't actually help any of the practitioners in the process itself understand what it takes to advance and build trust, because that's the assumption I see made is if they have a
Yeah.
customer label, there's trust, there's buy-in. They knew what was going on. Even internally, they know what each other's roles are, right? Which almost none of these things, especially when you're surprised. And what we want to do, and I'd argue the prep that you can do is like so much of this is what can we do beforehand, knowing
Yes.
the label and knowing what they're saying I as this label have to do, right? So that we prevent the moments where in those IT surprises, in those executive surprises, they go one of two ways, usually right now. And somebody in that equation just loses all of the leverage, like immediately. And when it's IT, especially, man, what a way to kill momentum of a project where everybody is excited. Then IT surprises the party and everybody's like immediately disempowered.
Yeah.
And with a framework like this, and when you can have assets at the ready because you know everybody that shows up, even IT, even if you didn't know they were showing up, you have the asset, you have the playbook ready to say, oh, thanks for joining IT. I'm so glad you could make it. Here's what I know you care about. So
Right.
here's how we're not going to change everything about what we were planning just to serve you,
Right.
right? Which is so. like, and the same thing can happen with executives. And even if you maintain the leverage in that moment, like the two options are usually executive takes over, and now we're building dashboards and reports focused on what they need for their board meeting next week. Or they're like, oh, this is not for me. I'm not involved in this. Like, cause you
Right.
guys are just sending out some emails. Right. And both things are bad.
Yeah.
Like both outcomes are bad. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. The I'm trying not to get distracted by the shiny like IT joined. We already have a Teams license. Can't we just do this with Teams?
Oh man.
Um, the number of like, well, we already have an X license. Like that's not even in the same product category. Uh, both in all facets. I have both sides of the table and everywhere I've had that conversation.
Or we could
Um,
just build that.
yeah. Well, yeah. Can't we just build this? Why haven't you? Yeah. And the, um, it's, it's hard to be like from the seller side, right? Um, the thing that the mindset, I guess, that I am constantly trying to tune and develop and reinvest in myself uh, is one that I have picked up from watching other people, which is the is kind of along the lines of what you described is like figure out who's on the call and what they need, what the value is that they need to create, like within the overarching umbrella of the stage that the relationship is at the top level. Because a signed contract doesn't mean a successful implementation. For example, you could still get somebody, IT or an executive, joining the call, and uh, wanting to be like, oh, I can use this to achieve my goals. All I have to do is derail the entire project. But to remember that, like, even in the best case good faith scenario, you are like, if you're lucky, you are one of 10 priorities that everybody on that call has. Even the person who is the point person for success of the project on their side of the business, you are one of 10 if you're lucky, right? Even if you are the biggest. And so like it is, the onus is on you, and it's so hard to do this, to figure out what everybody needs and where the individuals are at on that value path, right? Like somebody who is uh, who joins the call and is like, oh, I know what the initiative is, right? Not like maybe Andy in our example, and the contract is signed, but they are not a primary stakeholder for the project. That person is going to be at an earlier stage in the in the value path, right? Like their journey to like, we are aligned at getting maximum leverage out of this for the organization, is they're in a different place than somebody else. And so like if they're at buyer, when it's like, I am buying, this is one of the reasons the value path is such a useful and flexible framework, that that can mean I am I'm buying into this project and how it will be useful, and that I need to be involved, and I should give it some serious attention from and bandwidth from me. You can probably be okay without me, but I'm not necessary. But I can see how it would be useful. I just need to like make sure that it makes sense for me to stick my neck out and spend a bunch of time on it, right? Like
Yeah. Cause
they
I
aren't
probably have to
right.
like communicate it to others in the organization in some way that I can't just, give it lip service. I have to actually be bought in
Right.
so that I can like move others, like and communicate. Cause all of
Right.
this relates to like transformation and change management how do you make it so you don't get to these calls and it's so easy to just push it onto one human being on either side to be like, just get the project done. We paid for it. We've got a schedule. We've got 90 days to do this launch. We got to go live on this date.
Right.
Just get it done.
Right. And that person who's at buyer who needs to be bought in, they have, again, let's say best case, they have 10 priorities, and this is one that was added to that. So now they have 11, and they need to be on board with, okay, well, there's 3 priorities that I have to deprioritize if I'm going to stick with this. And so that is, you know, that's a challenge for them and for other people in the organization, right? And so the baseline, the overall directive for the value creator stage is understanding generally who are the stakeholders that are involved in once there's ink or dollars that have changed hands. Generally speaking, what are the roles or stakeholders that are involved in making a project successful? And what do those individuals need? When do they get involved in order to have skin in the game, be willing to back the project, to communicate internally, to manage the workload, to understand the process, right? And then continuously updating your knowledge of those things and then bringing it to bear during that stage, and to the degree you can, setting expectations earlier, so that when you look at the list of names on that invite on your calendar and your CRM enrichment or LinkedIn says director of CISO, or director of IT security is joining the call, you say, okay, we have this continuously updated playbook that AI maintains with questions, answers. We have the resources as part of it for IT security. There's a audit framework. There's there's the last conversation, talking points we had from SOC 2, meetings with clients, stuff like that. So that, maybe you send that ahead of time. Maybe you have the client portal that everybody gets a link to. That's like, here's what everybody needs to know at this stage. And it's got the security stuff in there. And are they going to click in and read it? Probably not. But the call doesn't get derailed in the last 5 minutes when IT says oh, first thing we have to do is do our entire audit of everything. So your timeline is nice, but it's going to take us 3 weeks before anybody is going to be able to, before we can hook up single sign-on or whatever.
Yeah, that LinkedIn example, again, all of the value first frameworks and especially the value path is how do you transform and change the way you think about this journey in a way that AI can help you.
Yeah.
And if you start to align, and it's the difference between let's say you just decided to have an adopter stage right next to your customer stage. And I guarantee most orgs would let's just get them through onboarding. And then once they're onboarded, we move them to adopter.
Right.
Right.
And then all we do is we change our definition of monthly active users to be, did somebody log in? And then we hit our adoption metrics.
Yeah. And that's the difference between conversion metrics and stage movement and understanding, because what you should be asking, in my opinion, is how do we make it easier for them to do that, for them to move forward, right? That's when you focus on the buyer and customers, how do we move them forward in their journey? And when you're focused on adoption, how do we make them an adopter, right? That's different from how do we help them realize value? How do we make value realization easier? And that's when you can train your organization into that perspective. It doesn't matter what CRM you're using, what systems you're using, which AI you choose to use. right? You can always have that response. Okay, if somebody says, I am learning, what are we doing to make that easier for them?
Right.
Researching, what are we doing to make the research easier? Right. And what we are doing now includes AI. And if AI knows what will make it easier or what you want to make easier, it can help you decide what's going to make it easier and how to deliver it and when to deliver it and who
Yeah.
cares about it and all these things.
Yeah. And like to the opportunities to improve the overall customer journey with AI. We could do a daily show for the rest of time on that. The
Don't tempt me.
uh, um, but like ratcheting it all the way down to a specific, like I like to get with like what AI can do for you in these situations. I like to get like hyper specific. And so like let's give an example, or I will give an example of that, which is if we think about like I'm the value creator. The watch phrase is like, I must create value. I'm on the hook to, you know, make use of this product, tool, whatever. An adopter is like, oh, I realize the value. And there are two meanings to realize there, and they are both absolutely critical to that definition, right? Like, oh, I understand now, like this has become a turn from a product that I have to use to a product that I understand how it helps my job. And the other definition of realize, I have created actual value within my org, whether that's again up to my manager, it's helping me do more work or better work or bring more visibility, whatever, right? Um, the your AI, you know, chat agent in your software product. Let's stick on SaaS for an example here of shouldn't just like wait around and when somebody asks a question, answer it from the knowledge base. Okay, that's version one, right? But the the like customer satisfaction, the mindset, the experience difference between somebody who's like rage clicking and saying, how do I create, whatever, how do I create a template? Um, is different than somebody who is that's like a value creator possibly for this organization. An adopter might be somebody who is asking that agent like, oh, how do I create different templates for different customer types or something like that? And the AI agent looks and says like, okay, they've got a template and it's been used 47 times in the last month. That's pointing toward more like adopter behavior. That's some of my adopter metrics. And so I'm going to answer this question in terms like a little bit more expansively. I am going to try to figure out, um, I'm going to look at the template that who their customers the template's been used with, and do a fan out on are they all different types or do all of their metrics say that these are similar so I can try to understand like what they are trying to accomplish with this versus a like step by step like, oh, first you go to templates, then you go to clone, then you go to config, and then you go to customer map or whatever, right? That AI can support and translate much better than our support articles can the questions that customers ask into an alignment with the stage that that individual user is at and answer their question and then present next step journey options that align with what it looks like they're doing, right? You got to get the basics of like, if you don't answer the question and then you just say like, oh, it looks like you're trying to create a template, you can fall off into Clippy territory.
Yeah.
But this like the AI agent who is watching and helping somebody work and getting their natural language of like, here's where I'm at with what I'm trying to solve and prompting with further questions can map to these stages far more effectively than adoption analytics can.
Yeah. Because, and that's for like all the transcripts, the tones, the words used, like man, we've been missing out on so much. And that's only like digital has kind of introduced that. Like when we were back before digital, like all the information was like verbal, or written, and you like because you're consuming information in that way, it, everybody has an opportunity to understand the context, right? Not that they always will understand the context, but it's there to use in the next story about how this relationship is going. And digital, like the promise of attribution has just like destroyed any muscles inside
Right.
of organizations. So when you show up on a call and like, because this is the part we want to prevent, is that the work has been done to start this project right. And everybody's bought in. You get marketing and sales, and like it's so easy to just go from hero to zero uh, by not knowing how to balance the conversation, which, in my opinion, is only possible if you know what everybody wants on the call. And if you, that means if sales is there and you start talking about marketing stuff that might impact sales, but they don't really know because you're not connecting it to how it's going to help them close the next deal.
Right. Or
Like
they
they,
haven't heard about the marketing plans that you are speaking about.
right. Like all the assumptions that we make about how aligned they are internally, how prepared they are. It's interesting that like, and this is happening with all of the stuff I'm thinking about right now in terms of everything's been about the plan going in and then how we deliver the plan. We have to, instead of like continuing to be surprised by our software or our humans or our AI, like let's plan and prep to be surprised, right? Like to understand that when, if we, like we wanted sales to, we want sales to be involved, like, but if we're not ready for them, it goes off the rails very quickly. And again, either one of those two groups either becomes a very sales focused conversation, and marketing's like, oh God, we thought we are going to get to do real marketing for once. And now we're just talking about how to do templates. And like that's the part where it's such a double edged sword where you get their buy in and like, oh, this template's working really well. Like, can we make this kind of template and this kind of template and this kind of template?
Yeah.
And it's just all of a sudden the project changes directions, and you know that that's the quick win. So you want to, it's hard not to lean into it. But when it comes at the expense of the other priorities of the project, it's like, okay, template's working.
Right.
Like, what, how's the deal closing going? Like, oh, wait, that's not impacted at all. All right.
Right. Or there's, the biggest killer in my experiences in those is like, and this is the really nuance. This is why uh, you said so many things that I want to elaborate on, but the biggest is like the lag between impact and excitement, right? Like if you're solving a pain point and you're coming in, it's like, oh, this is so much better than their old system, or I used to hate about this, and this has resolved that, and they just haven't been using the new tool long enough to find the things that they dislike about it. But they're, it's often not hard to find one thing at least that each stakeholder can be excited about the new project, and that thing is going to have a while before it can trickle down, right? Like because sales cycles are long, or because approval or implementation is long, or because there's adoption on the other side. Like, oh, we got these cool new templates, and now we got to get everybody to stop using their own templates, or somebody who's like, I don't need templates. And that's all part of helping that person create value, right? But it's like that gap is um, where the excitement fizzles, even if it is aligned with where you're trying to get with the project. And the one other thing that I will take the time to say is like, rewinding your point about pre and post digital being the predominant um, management tool chain, I guess, is like, the idea of like salespeople out on the street, knocking on doors, having a Rolodex in relationships, um, the lack of attribution and visibility, which, maybe we have um, gone too far or just mismanaged now, um, is like, people would say sales is about relationships. And so we stuck R into the middle of CRM because of that, but we didn't bring any of that R along with it, right? And that success on that first call of the peep and the value creator stage is like, what are those relationships, company to company, person to person on the company side, and person to person on the um, in the sales relationship, right? And so like that relationship failure, sales handing off to account management, and that you know well-meaning, hardworking account manager being a brand new face who is often not briefed on why we're all here on this call, like why we're really here. We're here to implement a tool, but like what, you know, like who was mad and so we're switching, and what were they mad about, right? They don't have that
Right.
information.
It's just another
Um,
one of those, executive decisions like to go get more leads. So that's why we're bringing in HubSpot.
right. Yep.
Like that happens.
Yes, it does.
And overall, like that's the goal of like the change of the name of this stage to try and give it a little more meaning, help everybody on all sides prepare. And when you can like believe that no matter who shows up, when they show up, how much they've been involved in the process or not, if you can trust that they have to answer that statement of I must create value, it gives you a chance of being prepared for any scenario that comes up. And when you can create this model for AI to understand, now you can look back and you can look at past behavior and you can start using historical information to understand like, okay, we've gotten really good because this is what happens, right? We've gotten really good at selling to all these roles, but somehow it's still like we still never deliver for IT, or IT still always gets in the way. And we're just so tired of it. We've tried to develop process that avoids, IT or
right.
pushes it on, or we say things like, well, that's not our problem.
Right.
Like that's
Yeah.
the champion's problem. And
Right.
well, I'm happy to like pay us some extra money. We'll coach you through that.
Yeah. Or we've got
But
a white paper. Like, what else do you want from us?
right. It's like, well, other IT directors in your space do this. And it's like, oh, that helps me not at all.
Yeah.
In my current situation. Yeah. So if you're wondering what the name of the stage means and why, hopefully that was helpful. I, next week, I think we can kind of dig into some, specifics about the stage itself and like different tools, you might be able to use uh, during this stage, like in a lot of it relates to like why the 90-day checklists don't work anymore. Like why, like just checking the box and helping you invite more people to the table earlier on instead of trying to avoid and just get to that next stage, get done with the onboarding.
Yes.
Right. Cause like, oh, you're making it harder for yourself if getting through onboarding
Right.
is the goal.
Yeah. If
Right.
it's not adding
So
value, why do it?
yeah. And that's the one point. Like, oh wait, the whole conversation has been about adding value, creating value, and now the goal is like completing onboarding. Like, how does that work?
Right.
Oh, because onboarding is going to be valuable for them no matter what. No, no, for this,
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
We're just trying to prevent people from canceling.
indeed. So we'll be back next week to dig a little deeper into this stage. Appreciate you joining me on this journey, Mr.
Yeah,
Oaks. We'll see you next
happy to
time.
do it. Let's create some value.